Hello children, my name's Mackinnon. I'm an artist and I'm talking to you now from the fields and the hills just outside my studio in Sebring, Cumbria. Today I know is your art day, so I'm going to be doing some drawing with you. First of all I'll show you around my studio, and then I'll show you some of my work, and then I'll do some little demonstrations of how to draw little flowers in pencil. You can pause the video at any time so that you can catch up, but most of all, enjoy it. Drawing should be fun. So let's get going. This is one of the tables in my studio. I've got a collection of all different types of painting that I do. There's gardens, flowers, landscapes. There's a river up there, local river. Studies of vegetables and little birds, all different types of subjects that I do in using watercolour or pastel. But today I thought we'd do some drawing in pencil. I don't know how many of you have paints with you. If you do, then you could perhaps colour them in afterwards. But first of all, we'll do some little drawings of flowers, and I'll do some demonstrations in a second just to help you along the way. I thought I'd show you another corner of my studio. This is another one of my tables. As you can see, I've got a little easel there where I'm doing my latest painting. Lots of paints. I'm using watercolours here, which you can see in the palette. And brushes, always have lots of brushes, lots of different pencils. There's some pastels there. And then here's another drawing board with so that I can stand up and do some paintings, and then above it there's lots of postcards to give me ideas of different things to paint. Some colour charts there, different paints, and there's the window. I always face the window so that I got plenty of light coming in. So that's another corner. Here's some paints over here, different types of paints, because I explore and experiment with different types of media, lots of pencils. So there you go, that's a little corner of my studio. This is a page in my sketchbook. I went out into the garden the other day and did some of the flowers, drew some of the flowers that were blooming at the time. There's some poppies, there's a foxglove, there's a rose, and then there's another flower that's called campanula. It grows and tumbles and twines into everything else. So I just did some little studies, and I thought you might like to copy some of these. I'm going to do some drawings in a minute where I'm actually going to draw the flowers for you so that you can see how I do it, and then maybe you can have a go yourself. And then you can have a look at this page and do some more perhaps. The first flower I'm going to do is a poppy. Now you always start flowers that are open like this with the centre. That way you get the petals all joining up. If you go around the edges, the chances are you'll end up over here somewhere and they won't join up. So always start in the centre. So I'm just doing some little bits of pollen here. This is where the bees head to get the pollen to move on to the other flowers. In the middle of here is just a little central piece. So I'm doing that there. Now, you then start your petals. Poppies are quite fragile, delicate flowers, so they're quite fluttery. So if you do it quite curvy, sort of bit of a wriggle round the top, and then come round here, and then back to the middle again. Then back to the middle, and you start with another petal that just comes behind there. So again, a bit curly, a bit wriggly, and stop round here. They have 4 petals, so this one can come on top of that one. So back to the middle, bit of a wriggle over here, Make that one a little bit flatter perhaps. Doesn't matter how you do it. It'll always end up, they're all different. Every petal, every poppy's different. So it doesn't matter if your wriggles are a bit different from mine. Then start your final petal, which comes up here, up there, a few little squiggles, and then back to the middle. So we've got a bit of a gap there, but that's okay because all the petals are now fluttering around in their own way. Then we'll just have a bit of a stalk, so you make sure the stalk joins up to the middle, so it comes from here, otherwise it'll all fall apart. So you pull your stalk down like this. So I'll just move down a little bit so I've got room. So back to there, and the leaves are quite scratchy leaves, quite sort of scribbly if you like. So do the leaves like that. Always put a central vein in. Another leaf comes down here, scribbly scribbly. Leaves are different. Whatever plant you're working on, the leaves are always different, so you must make sure you look at your leaves. That one can come just behind a little bit perhaps. A few spiky bits there. Again, the central vein. Then we'll have the final one. They seem to clump together leaves on poppies. So you can do more leaves if you wish, but I think that will do for now. A bit more stalk. And there we have a poppy. And I'll do something else in a minute. The next flower I'm going to draw is a rose. Now, like the poppy, this is a wild rose. It's not one of those that you see in the garden with lots and lots and lots of petals, but it's the same idea, so I thought I'd do this because it will be quicker for me to demonstrate. So again, we've got the pollen. You see more of the centre in this sort of wild rose than you do of the big blousy ones that you see in people's gardens. So again, there's a little central piece, and then there's bits of stamens coming out here. So there's your centre to your rose. Now again, you always start from the middle, and you start going for the first petal, which is a little bit smaller. They get bigger as they go round. So there's lots and lots of layers of petals, but these are all coming again from the centre. Remember, they must always come from the centre. And it doesn't really matter, they'll all be different shapes and sizes. Every flower will be different. Every rose will have a different number of petals. They'll all be different shapes, but they'll all be in the same, coming out from the same way and overlapping. So basically, as long as they're overlapping, and as long as they're starting small from the middle, getting bigger, whoops, then it'll be a rose. We have another one up here that does a bit of a funny shape. I'm looking at a rose as I'm doing this. It's always better if you can look at the actual flower itself. So if you've got roses, poppies or anything in your garden, then that would be lovely if you could paint those. But if you haven't got gardens, or if you haven't got many flowers out at the moment, then you can copy what I'm doing. So as you see, the petals are now getting bigger because they're behind the other ones. So these are much bigger, these petals. So make sure they overlap like this, and they can come right round the edges like this. Can you see what's happening? It's a bit like a wheel, just going round and round and round, and they're all overlapping, so make sure that some of them tuck themselves in, some of them overlap. That one just tucks in there. Then the next one comes out tucks itself round here. That's a big one. And then another one. I think that can probably be the last one. And there we have a rose. Now, their leaves are very different. We'll give a bit of a stalk coming down here. Whoops, oh, that's a bit of a skinny stalk. There we go. Often they've got buds, of course, so we'll do a bit of a bud, I think, coming off here. That has a little bit of a, I don't know what the botanical term is, but a bit of a bulbous bit there. And then round comes the bud itself, and it goes to little leafy squiggly bits there. There we go. There's a bud. And then we could have another bud coming over here. I have lots of buds. This one perhaps could be a little bit less open than the other, so that's a bit of a tighter bud. There we go. Now the leaves are big, much bigger than on the poppy, so we could have a leaf coming out behind here, and it's quite large and it's got a bit of a squiggly edge, but it's more round than the poppy ones were. So there we go. There's your central vein. We could have some veins coming off like this, and then there could be another one coming just peeping out there. Bit of a spiky bit there, and then another vein going down there. You can really play around with your leaves and your buds and have them all over the place. So there we go. Now I'll just show you the actual flower itself. There it is. Sorry it's in front of my brushes and lots of other things, but that's the actual rose that I was just doing. So there's the poppy and there's the rose. Now the third flower I'm going to do is a foxglove. It's a long, tall plant. You've probably seen them all in the hedgerows. They're often purple or white, and they're long, very tall plants. There's one here. Whoops, there we go. There it is. I expect you recognise it. And there's lots of petals, lots of flowers coming off this central stalk. So as you go down, it's best to start at the top, because then they get bigger as they go down. They're still very small at this point. They're just sort of like triangle shapes coming off this central stalk. And then they get a little bit bigger, and then they're starting to open up here. You might want to make that a bit dark in there so that it looks like it's inside. And then quite a few flowers that are all tumbling on top of each other, and then they poke out at the back there, all jostling for position. Carry your stalk on, carry on down, and then they start to get bigger. And then you start to see inside them a little bit, so you might want to see those little bits of pollen where the bees go. They're getting bigger all the time as you go further and further down the stalk. As you can see, I've just done a few more flowers on there, on the foxglove, so that you didn't have to sit and watch me drawing every one. Notice how these ones that are getting towards the bottom are getting bigger, and you can see how they're opening, and you can actually see the little bits of pollen in there where the bees go. So make sure that this is nice and frilly at the bottom here, and that you can actually almost see inside it. So now let's carry on with the stalk, and then we'll do some of the leaves. Now, as we've been talking before about leaves, these leaves are big and floppy. big leaves. They don't usually go to much of a point at the end. They're usually a bit more round and wavy. There we go. Do the central vein. Maybe have another one over here. You can do as many as you want because foxgloves tend to have lots of leaves. You'll notice them if you go out looking at them in the hedgerows. You'll notice that they have lots of big leaves. We can have some, whoops, don't want to point. Can have some overlapping there at the back. Another vein. So you can just enjoy putting the leaves on. Lots of flowers. You can have many more flowers than that. I've just done it quite as a thin foxglove really. Lots of them are really have lots of flowers. And then if you wanted, you could paint them in purple or pink, but I think that'll do for now. So now you've drawn a poppy, a rose and a foxglove. And if you've got paints, then maybe you could colour them in. If you've got paints or felt tips or even colour pencils. This foxglove was purple, the poppy was yellow, although they can be orange, and the rose was pink. So I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and I'm sure you've done some lovely drawings, and maybe I'll see you next year, actually at school next time. Bye bye.